So when did you start tapping into natural healing stuff,
Yeah, good question.
quote unquote?
So 2014 had all the issues. 2015 was still in the military trying to fight through it. End of 2015, it's 2016, I would say. I was actually in so first group is the special forces group up at JBLM. They invited me to their performance lab to do this, I don't know, exercise physiology thing where I was going to jump on the treadmill. They're going to test my VO2 max and lactate threshold, all things that I got trained to do. I was a kinesiology undergrad. I love this stuff. I got there and they put a heart rate monitor on me, and my resting heart rate was like 120. And they're like, you just drank a bunch of caffeine. At the time, I didn't drink caffeine, coffee, and I was like, nope. And they're like, well, is there anything else wrong? And I'm like, well, I've been pooping out blood, but no big deal. Like, I've been pushing through this. And thankfully, again, for whatever reason, God's put men in my life that are super high performers, I look up to. There's a guy named Doc Haight. He was awesome. Dr. Haight, he used to be the performance physician. He was like the sports medicine physician for the Army's world-class athlete program. And he had coached and I guess overseen a lot of great athletes. He looked at me and he's like, look, no, you're not jumping on that treadmill. I'm taking you to the hospital. And I'm like,
120
no.
resting is insane.
Yeah, it was terrible. I lost so much blood that I actually needed like a blood transfusion in the hospital. That was the first hospitalization I had. I guess that was 2014 into 15. So he was the first guy that was like, hey, like, no, this isn't something you just push through. Like, you need to actually get care. I tried to hide it up to that point, go to outpatient clinics, get some meds or whatever, keep going. Because I didn't want it to affect my career. Once you get on certain medications, you're not deployable by the military. I'd even gotten some corticosteroids. They're technically non-deployable, but it was the doctor trying to do me a favor. So I tried to keep it off my record for the first 2 years of dealing with it or so. He was the first one who was like, no, like, you could really hurt yourself. You need to. And I learned later, like, if I had kept pushing through it, I could have perforated my whole colon, had toxic megacolon. I could have died. Realistically, I could have just ended up without my colon. Over the next 2 years, twice I got consulted to remove my whole large intestine, have a colostomy bag for the rest of my life. And I think that was when I first was told, hey, you might literally be pooping into a bag for the rest of your life. That
Good
I was
Lord.
like, well, there's got to be other options, right? And I'd ask. I remember my mom, even, she came to visit all the way from New York to be like, what about nutrition? Does nutrition matter? They're like, well, at least my best doctors at the time would at least say, we don't know. That's a good answer, actually. It's better to say we don't know than to say it doesn't.
Right.
Nutrition doesn't matter. So what goes into my gut and what comes out the other end, like, it does matter, obviously. I knew that intuitively, but also as an athlete, and I knew whatever I put in my body did affect my performance, definitely affects my health. But I was basically told, through the conventional system, nope, take these meds. If this med doesn't work, the next option is surgery to remove my whole large intestine. Mine was so damaged, there was no way to cut out a piece or try to save it. So I actually got penciled in for surgery, and this doctor
to remove your colon.
To remove my colon. And that's really where I was reading the Bible at the time. I was starting to grow in my faith, but I was still like, well, God, like, what are we going to do about this? And I read in, I think it's 2 Corinthians 12, the day before surgery, is Paul crying out to God saying, about this thorn in his flesh. And I didn't really know what that was at the time, and I still don't know necessarily, but he said, Paul, my grace is sufficient for you. I have been made strong in your weakness. And that is true. So I actually thought God was guiding me to say, you know what, God, I've cried out to you 3 times. If this is my journey, that it's to have a colostomy bag, then I'm ready, whatever you want me to do. And I was fully surrendered. I'd just given my life, I would say, fully over to him at that point. And thankfully, the surgeon came in the next day and said, Brian, the way we're going to take out your colon, God never intended. The way we're going to rewire your gut and have this thing, God never intended that. So that was number one. I was like,
wait, who said that?
This is the surgeon.
He said that?
The next day. And he didn't know. I mean, I had a Bible on probably next to me, but I don't know if he knew I was a believer. I'd never met this guy, Colonel Johnson, I believe. Only had one more interaction with him, but lovingly, he told me that. And then he said 2 other things. He said, they say from Cleveland Clinic is where this surgery was invented. The data shows about a 1% infertility risk, but you start cutting things down there. He's like, just want to let you know, realistically, it's probably about a 10% risk that you may never have kids if you choose to have the surgery. Just the way we're going to cut things and do things, like, there's a chance that we hit some wires that shouldn't be hit. So he said those 2, and then he said, look, Brian, like, I can, just to be clear, I can make you better than you are right now. You're pooping out blood 30 times a day. You're miserable. You're on multiple medications. You're sick, but you'll never be whole again. You'll never be perfect again. Even on best day, you'll have 4 to 7 times. You'll have to go into this bag and empty it, and there'll be
God.
infections and this and that. He's like, look, you'll be better than you are right now. You'll never be whole again. And I was like, okay. He walked out. I opened the Bible, end of 2 Corinthians, probably the most random chapter in the New Testament. It's just Paul greeting people, saying, when this guy passes through, help him, do that. It says at the very end, 2 Corinthians 13 says, brothers, strive for perfection in all that you do. Just some random, it's like the last little charge of the book. And I think that's in New Living Translation. I'll have to post the verse, but I had this overwhelming grace and peace just like wash over me, because this guy had said, Brian, I can make you better than you are right now, but you'll never be perfect again. And then that moment, God met me through his word and said, strive for perfection. He didn't say, you will. He didn't say you will. Didn't say, and I had just overwhelming peace that I wasn't supposed to get surgery. Sounds crazy, right? I was already reading medical journals. I was actually in some back in some pre-med classes. Like I had some really great people kind of pointing me towards medicine at that point. Logically, it's like, I should probably get surgery. You know, I've tried everything else at this point medically that they told me about. But just this complete peace that you strive. You know what? The worst case is now the surgeon knows you. Your colon does perforate. You're bleeding out, and you get surgery and you remove it. Best case, I didn't really have a best case at the time, but I had peace about not getting the surgery the next day, because it was considered an elective surgery, because I wasn't to the point where it was so damaged that it like needed to come out like imminently. So yeah, I got out of the hospital. I met this.
So you hold on. How do you do? Hey guys, by the way, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm literally in the hospital.
How does that?
6th floor of Madigan Army Medical Center, looking out at it's a big Mount Rainier. You know, just coolest hospital. It's a great spot. Glad I haven't been back there since. But
and would you just tap out? What did you say?
Yeah, I said, hey, and that's pretty hard to do. I was still active duty. You know, could have been told like, nope, you're assigned to get this. I said, look, I'm gonna look for some other options. Turns out my neighbor had been to a naturopathic doctor. She had her own journey with mold or Lyme, and she was like my mom's friend from college. This whole crazy. The next, like, from the minute of saying no.
Yeah, tell me what happened from there from that point forward.
From there, I got out of the hospital, went home.
Were they like, okay, no problem? You sure? Were they trying to talk you out of it?
No, honestly, the surgeon, I'm really grateful. He was about to retire from the military, so he's like, look, I'm going to be down the street. You know me now. I can get you in to get surgery if you ever need it, but you're good. And in the military, there's a lot of turnover, so it's not like there's one doctor. Thankfully, I had different doctors that were open. You know, there's some promising research. There's this, there's that. None of it really helped me. Like I tried, like I said, at least 9 different meds that were all proven to put people in remission. Even the best meds, though, and again, who knows, it's conspiracy theory wise, they all had around a 50% efficacy rate. Meaning if you go on this biologic, you get 3 infusions of it, 50% of people do go into remission, stop pooping out blood, have resolution of symptoms, and the colonoscopy looks clean afterwards. That's great, but there's 50% that don't. But most of the meds, they'll get like 1 or 2% better. And that, some people would say it's like they already probably have, and we do, right? In natural medicine, we have ways to actually help people. And I will say, nothing I share is medical advice. This is my own journey. You know, I have a license and all that, but I love talking about this because in the end, I have helped people get off of biologic meds. I have helped people restore to full health that were told the same thing I was told, that, hey, you're never going to be healthy again. You're going to be either sick or you're going to have missing body parts through this. That's just not true. There are other options.
And you need to stay on these meds.
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest thing. I think that's the big, right? So health span versus lifespan. The main push, the best thing for business would be for people to be alive, but not healthy. And that's really our health span is how old are we? How long can we go while still being healthy? Most people don't want to live in that area where they're alive, but not well. And that's what we focus on. And but the conventional medical system, it's incentivized to keep people in that state of alive, but not well.
And what's so now we're going to get down here. So what's the age, like, where the percentage is so high in our country, in America, where you are not healthy? Is it like 40 plus?
I would say most of the research is 50 and above.
50 and above.
And there's a few reasons for that, most likely. Women going into menopause definitely changes things. And that can happen earlier or later. And we see that. Same with men. There's it's that period where we're still grinding and maybe haven't realized, like, because we've kind of created both culturally this idea you get to 60, 65, and then you can retire. And by that point, though, you might be so broken, so you know,
which is the norm.
it's the norm.
It is the norm.
Yeah. So it's usually somewhere between that 50 and 65 where people kind of get sold and want to believe there's a band-aid that could at least help them get to that point where then they can retire and then they can work on themselves and do all that. And that's such a lie. Unfortunately, the body starts accumulating, toxins and damage and things that can keep them. You're investing in your health now can make a major difference. And, I'm preaching to the choir with you. But yeah, it seems like somewhere around 50 is where some people have a wake-up call, or they just kind of fall into almost every year they go to their doctor and get put on a new med, a cholesterol med, a blood pressure med, antidepressant. It's like one after the other. And, at a minimum, we should be checking and looking at their hormones. We should be looking at their sleep, their nutrition, their lifestyle. And so we do all that. It's obviously a big passion of mine now, but I'm grateful I got woken up at a young age, and it hasn't been about my health. I was obsessed with my racing and physical health, you could say, physical performance. I had to put all that aside. I'm so grateful that Jesus made it clear to me, seek first the kingdom and these things will be added to you. My health got added to me, and I'm so grateful for that. It did take some effort, but the same things I was passionate about human performance and racing, getting into the details of power on the bike and mileage and all this stuff, he used that same vigor, that same desire, the same passion, and redirected it towards actual health. And I see, physical health without spiritual health, also, we were talking about earlier, doesn't really get me excited.
No.
When I get to see someone heal physically, because I get to observe that all the time, we get to see miracles, people call it. But I see someone heal physically and there isn't a spiritual change, or there's no spiritual part of their life. It's kind of like seeing the world in black and white. It's like watching a black and white movie. When I get to see someone heal and evolve spiritually and grow closer to the Lord, like that is seeing it in color. That is what I know I'm called to. And that's what God did for me. And I know he wants to do it for others too.